Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast brought to you by RaceForThePrize.com. Let's look at Gateway, or Worldwide Technologies Raceway in St. Louis, Missouri. Apparently the track sells out, although it never looks like that on screen. So it will keep its race. Not because of the racing, it's just popular or whatever. Here we go. Gateway, sorry to spoil it for you, probably not the best race. And you're definitely not going to watch the replay on YouTube. I will save you tons of time today and explain it for you. But first, it's June. You want the Gateway sheets, Sonoma, Iowa, New Hampshire, $30. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. I'll share everything with you, all lap by lap data. You know the drill. Or just one-time payment, get your summer taken care of. And I'll throw in Nashville, Chicago, Pocono, Indy, the IRP races, June and July. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, RaceForThePrize.com. Come on, get on in here. Save you time. There's not a lot of sports going on this summer, so it looks like it's NASCAR. You and me and the rest of the crew having some fun. Let's break down Gateway. Long weekend. I'm a little exhausted today. How about you? Probably going to be breathing deeply on this podcast on the treadmill while I rock. My apologies. I know there's going to be some complaints. So, real quick with Gateway. Flat, intermediate, short track, intermediate track, flat track, whatever it is. The racing, probably not the best. There's not a lot of passing. Most of your lead changes are going to happen on pit road and on restarts. That makes it kind of tricky to build lineups if you're looking at the lap-by-lap data. If you're looking at long-run data, not really the best indicator. But hey, here's the good news. You ready for this? Too long, didn't read. Can't sit through a 30-minute podcast with me, especially if I'm exasperated. Boring can be profitable. Boring can be predictable. We do have a small sample size, but we have seen some direct patterns. And we can make some pretty good decisions, even though we may not want to trust long-run data or lap-by-lap data. As you can see on the screen, Kyle Busch with RCR and JGR first and second place, and leading, running fast laps, dominating, if you will. Although dominator is probably not the right choice of words for this. It is much more of a hog, but absolutely controlling the race, controlling the field. And then our next guy is Ryan Blaney, who could have won both of those races. 35 hog points or dominator points, 20. So we've got two clear favorites. Oh, it's a small sample size. It is. But if you look closely at these races, you're going to see that in the next gen car, the JGR cars and Kyle Busch at RCR, and then the Penske cars have been pretty solid. Oh, well, Penske's not that great this year. Well, I hear that. It's an intermediate track package, so I think they can ultimately be fine. They've raced this car before, and they've set it up really well the last two seasons. I'm not worried about Penske. Definitely not worried about JGR. So that would be your first steps in approaching the week. And then also taking Kyle Busch. You got Denny Hamlin finishing second, JGR. Mark Truex Jr., fifth and sixth place finishes. Solid. Logano wins in 2022, third place in 2023. And one thing you'll notice is that despite Larson finishing fourth, we'll explain this in a second, Hendrick cars pretty absent from here. SHR cars, not really a big surprise, not really showing up. So that's your first step in building this week at Gateway. I mean, we even have Austin Cindric, who ran really well. 13th, 11th, qualified really well in 2022. Penske, JGR, I think that's where we're going to start. The next thing we're going to start with in the podcast is explaining the optimal lineups that have come through. Really no surprise here, explaining Kyle Busch and his massive 105 fantasy point day. Starts on the pole, stays out front all day at a racetrack where passing is extremely limited. Again, most of the passing is going to happen on pit road. It's going to happen on restarts, and that's that. And there's a huge advantage to starting up front. As long as you don't really get off on strategy, you can have a pretty good day. Now, we do see some place differential guys that came through. We'll explain those in a second. But when we look at finishing order and starting up front and driver rating, strong correlation to just staying up front in clean air at a track where it's hard to pass. So from our hogs/dominators, we need them to be starting close enough to the front. Obviously, starting first, Blaney starting second, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now you're going to look at 2022, and you're going to see some hog dominators in the first race in the next gen car at Gateway. It started slightly further back, but not too far back. We'll explain that in a second. But anyway, first of all, Bush Blaney starting up front. You can't pass. As long as they stay on the right strategy, you're going to get laps. And even when we look at Blaney, well, he got to the lead somehow, pit road. That's the answer. Pit road, he gained a spot, boom, done. Here you go. Awesome, cool. So we look at the rest of the optimal lineup from 2023. 2 hogs, and then we got a place differential in Larson, place differential in McDowell, place differential in Busher, and a place differential in Gilly. How'd they get there? We'll start with Larson, who was not very good. Average running position, 15th. Not a strong day for Larson at all. These guys hog all the hog points. So the only way to get to the top of the scoreboard was finishing position, place differential. And so when you got Hamlin and Byron and Logano starting closer to the front, they can get finishing position, but they get locked out of place differential. All the hog points go here. So then it ends up with your picks 3 through 6 are PD that maximize finishing position. How did Larson do it? Great question. Pretty simple. We can look at his laps. Now, I apologize. The laps are kind of wonky looking on the screen here in a second because of the NASCAR feed for whatever. Struggled at Gateway. So we look at Larson's run, and he actually struggles very early in the race. Falling back, not running well. Not running well at all. Staying on the lead lap, but he's a 25th place race car. Yeah, he makes some passes here, but he's passing in the 20s. Not really something to hang your hat on. So how does he, oh, wait a second. Lap 98, he jumps from 20th to 10th, and that's what you're going to see in this race a lot. And that's going to be the explanation for the next 2 drivers. He takes 2 tires, other people take 4 tires, all of a sudden he's in 10th. And it's really not that detrimental at a racetrack where you can't pass anyone. You just get your spots on pit road and hold position. And now magically, he's a 10th place car. Falls off a little bit to 14th, 13th. See, like I mentioned, the feed from NASCAR kind of goofy. But for the most part, he's back at 10th where he was before. Now all of a sudden, Larson, starting 22nd, is around a top 10 car. Not because his car is faster than anyone else, although, yeah, he's Kyle Larson, but he just got position on pit road, and that's that. And here we go again. 8th to 1st, playing games on pit road. Now all of a sudden he's on the lead. Now on a different tire against other people, he isn't able to maintain that because he's not that great at this track, but he's now all of a sudden a top 5 race car. And we got cautions. He played games on pit road, never really had to do any long runs, more cautions, and he finishes 4th. How about that? Some people may look at the data and say, oh, Larson's good at this track. It was pit road, and then tons of cautions. And we had plenty of tire failures, spins, brakes exploding left and right in 2023. Will we have that issue again? Look, we've seen plenty of cautions in the first 2 years in the next gen car at Gateway. I would expect to see similar. And so it's going to come down to pit road. It's going to come down to restarts. And I don't think I care much about long run speed whatsoever. So there's your Larson play. It wasn't because he was fast. It was pit strategy that jumped him up into clean air. What about Michael McDowell? McDowell will do a bunch of, and we can look at Larson. I'll show you his actual pit times. So we'll go to Larson. Got Busher on here first. We'll get to Busher in a second. Take Busher off. Throw on Larson. And we'll look at his pit stops. So there it is. Lap 98, takes 2 tires. Pretty simple, huh? And then over here, you can see, look at these pit stop times. Lap 43, that's not really a big mover for him, but lap 98 is. He's only in his box for 5.3 seconds, as opposed to the normal 10 seconds. That's 5 seconds of track time, although it isn't a caution, but still, that's spots. And here it is again on lap 135. Again, the feed didn't necessarily do correctly. This is another 2-tire stop for him. Lap 177, takes 4.7. This is when he jumps to first place. There it is, folks. Let's look at Michael McDowell, who also is going to do the same strategy, in which we see Michael McDowell do a lot. And the interesting thing about McDowell is he does it early in the race and then spins out. Like, oh, well, that didn't work. Probably ought not do that again. It's like, well, it wasn't really the tires. It just got in the wrong spot. So again, he does 2-tire strategies. This is the first time he does it. Lap 48, gets up front, but then he spins out. So then he's got to work on his car a little bit here and there. But then at the end, it's like, I don't learn my lesson. As long as I don't get spun out again, it'll work. So 143, 2 tires, and he'll do another situation like that again. And we can look at McDowell, and we can look at his laps, and we'll again show you him jumping around simply based on the strategy of pit road. You can see his run. There it is. What does he get? 2 spots maybe at the beginning, and then all of a sudden he is in 8th place. Takes 2 tires, spins out. And then he's running in the back again. Running in the back. Here we go again. 2 tires. All right, right back up into the top 15. Here we go again. 2 tires. Now he's in the top 5. Going to lose some spots on restarts and whatnot. Right here, he loses some spots, which you wouldn't really be surprised to see. And he ultimately comes away with a 10th place finish. Why? You guessed it. 2 tires. Teammate, Todd Gilliland, will pull up his times. What do you think he did? What does Front Row Motorsports always do? We even watched Zane Smith have an average finish in a part-time ride for Front Row in 2022. Have a finishing position much better than where he ran his race. Here you go. Gilly doesn't do it late in the race, but he does it right here. Lap 48. And I think it might be missing one of his pits. Let me see if I can pull up exactly where Gilly gets his gains. Let's run the Gilly data. So we've got Gilliland starting 28th. Gets up to 22nd. Now, I think an argument could be made that Gilliland could be halfway decent at this track because of his truck experience. There it is. There's that 2-tire stop I mentioned. Works out for him. Doesn't work out for his teammate McDowell. So now all of a sudden he's a top 15 car. Fades a little bit again. Fades more. Oh man, this 2-tire thing. It's stupid. What are we doing? What are we doing, folks? Why would we do something dumb like that? Lap 200. I don't believe it's a 2-tire stop. I believe he just stays out. And so now all of a sudden he just gains some spots, a bunch of restarts and cautions, and just pretty much hangs on to a top 15 finish. That's all there is to it. All there is. All right, now what about Chris Buescher? What's the story with him? The big trick with Chris Buescher, again, like Larson, didn't really have a great race car. Here he is at the beginning of the race. He's kind of minding his own business. Back in the 20s. 100 laps in. We're still minding our own business. Doing absolutely diddly. Running around 25th place. And then all of a sudden we see a little decent restart here on lap 102. Hey, great. Nice. Picks up a couple spots on pit road. Gets a good restart. Now all of a sudden he's about up to 17th. So give him some credit there. Good restart. Moving up a little bit in the world. Running 15th. But also, there will be a situation here with Buescher where he just doesn't stop, I believe. If I can find it. There it is. Lap 200. He has faded back to 20th. He does not stop. He stays out. He gains a bunch of spots. There he is, right back up into the top 15. We run a bunch of cautions. Doesn't really have to worry about fall off. Finishes 12th. Pit road, restarts. Your long run speed probably doesn't matter. Your car probably doesn't matter. Avoid problems and make sure that you're pitting at the right times. And you say, well, maybe they were fast in practice. We can pull that up. And so we'll sort it by driver rating, which gives us an overall idea of average running position and speeds. And we look at the drivers like McDowell. Here's McDowell, 19th driver rating. Yes. Was he fast in practice? Yes. But he was also in Group A, where the track was faster. And again, even if you do believe in those times, we looked at his laps. Did he look like the fastest car out there? Doesn't matter if you were fast in practice. Cool. Can you pass? Great. You got speed and running laps on an empty track in practice. But can you actually pass with that car? No, you can't. His speed's probably a little inflated, even with Kyle Larson, another Group A driver. And really, the only practice speed I care about is what'd you do on one lap? And then were you able to replicate that one lap to get a pole? And you can see Kyle Busch gets a pole. Ryan Blaney, he's only 18th fastest. Well, that's probably suppressed because he was in Group B. Track wasn't as fast. But then when they went out for qualifying, possibly he had a better understanding of the track. Something to consider this weekend at Gateway. So I would say that practice probably not going to be a big deal. Nothing that I really want to worry about. I mean, even if we go back to Buescher, look at what did he do in practice. 12th, 15th, and that's Group A, where the track was a little bit faster. And then he goes out and qualifies 27th and really doesn't do anything in the race. So he plays the pit road game the correct way. Gilly wasn't bad in Group B. And again, we may want to give him a little bit of credit because when we look at experience at Gateway in this field, Gilly, and I look at Gibbs, sorry. Yeah, Gibbs is much better, obviously, but Gillen still 21st, 16th. Those are not terrible for Group B. It's not great, but it's not terrible for a $5,600 driver in a front row car. I think you might want to give him a little bit of credit given his experience compared to the field. It's up to you. I'm not saying you need to jam in Gillen because he's Gillen his experience, but if I did want to make an argument for jamming in Gilly, it would be because Front Row Motorsports definitely is going to go 2-tire, no tire. If they follow the leaders, that's what they're going to do, is follow. And they crack the code. How many more people are going to get crazy with strategy? But then again, if everybody's doing something different, then everyone has a chance. And it could be pretty wild. And I would expect that in our third run here at Gateway, more people are going to be willing to take 2 tires and no tires because it worked for Larson, it worked for Gillen, it worked for McDowell. That means everyone's going to be doing it. That means everyone's going to be in all kinds of different strategies. So you just kind of throw the cards up for the place differential chases. Throw the cards up in the air and start picking them up. As for our hogs and dominators, they will be more conservative because they can be, and they will more than likely just stay in that top 10. And if at any point someone jumps up into the top 10 that doesn't deserve to be there, they're more than likely going to be on 2 tires or no tires. And the fastest drivers with those 4 tires should be able to overcome and get right back up front. So simple build for now looking at 2023. Hogs dominators, I want them up front, and I want the guys that have done it before. And then place differential, you can really go anywhere. Obviously, Front Row Motorsports is the team that's doing it more than anyone else, but I expect pretty much everybody else to start following suit. Single lap speed, qualifying, really going to be the big factors in determining our big guys. It's like almost Monaco in Missouri. So this is going to be a qualifying session you're not going to want to miss. Or at least just look at the data, I guess. Look at 2022 Opto. They're going a little bit deeper. This is the first year in that next-gen car, which always created some little bit of wonky situations. But again, we got Kyle Busch. And you say, oh, well, he started 12th. But if you look at the drivers that started in front of him, like Ryan Briscoe was on the pole, blows a tire on the first run. Austin Cindric was up front. Harrison Burton was up front. It really wasn't much for Busch and Truex to get there. And again, they're starting 12th and 13th, which means they just barely missed out getting into that second round of qualifying. And again, we're seeing the same cars. JGR, Penske, JGR, Penske. Pretty similar pattern. And drivers that tend to do well at flatter tracks. No real surprises there. Again, hog dominator for the most part. You're going up front. And you can expand it. If you've watched qualifying, you see that, oh, well, guy just missed out. He's got the speed to get there. And so he should, throughout the course of the race, as long as the strategy doesn't go crazy, be able to make enough moves. And Kyle Busch is really fast. If there is a guy that's able to make some passes, Busch has been able to do it. Logano, Truex, you end up with 3 hogs in this situation, and that very well could be the case again if we get plenty of cautions, restarts, pit stops. I don't see why not. We had 2 last year, because Busch and Blaney pretty much were able to control most of the race, and the cycling didn't work out too wonky. But you very well could end up with 3 that lead laps and run fast laps. So then we've got AJ, Eric Jones, and Justin Haley. And we do notice that 2 of the drivers are from Kaulig. AJ starting 35th to 6,200 because he wrecked in practice. Not really that crazy of a play. Again, you look at his average running position, 21st. Haley, 26th. Gives you an idea that, yeah, maybe these guys finished a little bit better than they should, and there could be tricks and games at work. We'll start with AJ and look at his laps and explain how he makes things work in 2022. He actually is halfway decent. 35th. He's able to move forward, which you would expect. Remember, he wrecked in practice. He's not really blazing through the field. For the Kaulig car to get to 23rd on lap 65, not the craziest thing. But one of the things you're going to notice is if you look at here, lap 48, we get some green flag stops that are going to benefit some people. As you can see with Truex going from 11th to 2022. And that's going to boost some people up who don't go at the green flag stops. Like our pal Eric Jones, who was in 19th. Now he's in 15th. So again, we're not necessarily seeing speed or driver type really boosting up. It's very sequential. Pit stop sequencing, timing things correctly. He doesn't really benefit that much, but I believe he also takes the tires right here as well. And so that way he doesn't have to pit later on in the moments. So again, he's running in 25th. Good restart on 100, puts him in 20th. Another halfway decent restart, grabs a couple more spots with these back-to-back cautions. He's running 18th. Again, he had to start in the back because of the wreck in practice. Now he loses a bunch of spots because of tire or for a pit stop, but he's able to get right back to where he was. So now imagine again more pit road games because he pit on lap 131. He can now not pit. He's now back in 16th. Again, it's sequencing. He passed his way about to 20th-ish. Got some spots through gains and strategy. And here we go. Decent restart. Make some stops. Now you say, oh, look, he's driving forward. Again, he pits, takes 4 tires. Is able to pass some cars in the back of the 20s. Not really that wild for that to happen. Eventually, those tires wash out into 15th. Not really like plowing through the field. 227, good restart. It's the 13th. Hangs on, there it is. You could argue, oh, he was good. I think the strong argument based on that data is, yeah, he was halfway decent. But pit sequencing worked out pretty well for him. He was pretty strong on restarts. You also hear, oh, well, AJ Allmendinger is good on flat tracks. Sure, throw that in there. But I think a stronger case can be made that the nature of gateway racing with pit sequencing and restarts, ultimately, is how AJ got a 10th place finish from starting in the back. Probably had a 20th place race car. I mean, his average running position was 21st. We know why he started in the very back. So he finished about 10 spots better. And that's because he was on the right side of pitting and the right side of restarts. Give him credit, he nailed his restarts. But when you're going into a DFS contest and trying to predict, and you're trying to look at data and current form, whatever stats you want to use, average running position, driver rating, lap by lap data, previous practice data, don't know how useful sometimes that can be, when ultimately what is useful, because looking at all this stuff gives us the idea that, yeah, it's going to be pits and restarts. So yeah, it is useful to look at this data. But weekend data, which tends to be more practice data and finishing position, etc., don't know how useful that will be. Let's look at our next driver, Justin Haley. And we'll do this one really quick because he's running in the back all day. And how does he make it work? He is 27th on lap 22. He is on the lead lap, and he is one of the few cars that actually pits right here. And he takes 4 tires. Everyone else in the field is on old, ancient tires. They stay out. And he drives from 26th to 14th. Huge advantage. And we actually see William Byron is on the same strategy. Doesn't quite get the same gains, but he too, on the lead lap, takes 4 tires. And against ancient tires, he gets 19th. So give credit to Haley. Again, maybe some recent truck experience helps him here. But his average running position throughout the race was 26.4. No bueno. But at the very end, he takes 4 tires, and the whole field stays out. And there's just enough laps. Their tires are just old enough that he makes serious gains. Again, looking ahead to this week at Gateway, how do you predict for that? You go through the data all week. You do your research. There's nothing that's going to tell you that on lap 227, drivers are going to stay out on a little bit older tires, and a guy who runs in the back all day takes 4 and is able to make enough gains, gets another restart, and really he doesn't even get anything on the last one. He just gets to 14th right here, passing, imagine the car's running from 20th to 25th. Probably not that great, and on old tires. Sure, I'll take 3 wide and just cruise by you. And then even the car's running 15th to 20th on old tires. And he got all these in 1 lap. So his tires are still super fresh. And boom, boom, boom. Got it. Oh, we got a caution. All right, I'll just stay right here. That's how it works sometimes, folks. And that's how it probably work at Gateway. I think the biggest takeaway is that you're chasing place differential. It doesn't necessarily have to be rational. There's a lot of rational, logical thinking in picking your hogs and dominators. And I think that's very predictive, and that's good, and that's great. Awesome. But then once we slot out, spots 1, 2, maybe possibly even 3, and then we're going down, like, all right, who can maximize finishing position and pick up a whole bucket load of place differential? That's where rational and logical may have to go out the window. And you might have to simply just take a pick and hope that strategy falls that driver's way. I believe Eric Jones also gets some of his gains on pit road as well. I mean, there it is right there. Eric Jones, 7 to 1. It's pit road, folks. Pit road. Here it is on lap 95, 11 to 5. Pit road, 13 to 8. You get the picture. And I think another way to illustrate this even more is if we look at the top 23, look at the top 10 scores. Fine, makes sense. Average running position pretty much locks up. We got Larson. We've already explained why that is, but you got an average running position way down, finishes much better. We know. And then the rest of the top 10, guys who are up front all day, finish up front. Not massive scores. But here's the interesting one. You look at 10 through 20, or 11 through 20. Gilliland down to Cindric. Look at these drivers' average running position. I know that guy's really going to hammer me about average running position. Again, there are tons of data points to use. The guy complained that I made a comment about solely using average running position. It's true. If you're only using one data point, average running position, that's not good. But if you're using all kinds of different data points, and you're definitely just using this to illustrate the differences in a race, not using it to make a pick. If you're using average running position to make a pick, it's not a great strategy. Maybe I was too aggressive to say stupid. I apologize for offending the YouTube commenter that said that was too hurtful and hateful and mean. I apologize. Using average running position to make picks is not the wisest choice. I hope your feelings feel better. I hope you're not all up in your feelings, as the inner city students used to tell me. Oh man, he's all up in his feelings. You mean he's emotional? Is emotional the word you're looking for? Nah, he's all up in his feelings. He's emotional. Okay. So if you're all up in your feelings, I'm sorry. Average running position, don't use that as just one data point to make predictions. Average running position and trying to explain the context of how a race will unfold is a very wise way. Along with other stats, looking at all the laps, along with looking at the pits. We do a little bit of work here. I don't know if you've noticed. It's a pretty long podcast at times. We look at a lot of different data points. Really go deep. I don't know if anyone else goes as deep, but here we are. And I'm sure this will be taken out of context. There he is. He's talking about average running position again. He said it was stupid. Go ahead, create your third burner troll account and come after me once again. Try to make amends. Anyway, average running is 24th to 15th, 24th to 17th, 23rd to 18th, 24th to 16th. How about that? How about that? Pit road restarts. Pit road restarts. As long as you know that. Now, I know the first takeaway is like, crap, I don't even want to play this weekend because I can't predict things. Well, yes, you can. You can predict things now. Not everyone in the world listens to this podcast, believe me, except for the trolls. Trolls will be here. A lot of people are going to try to make rational, logical picks in the back. They may not even chase place differential. I believe they will chase place differential, but they're going to be methodical in their chase. They're going to look at practice data. They're going to look at long run speed. And you're going to know that that data probably isn't that predictive. You're going to know that you need to be a little bit off the beaten path. That's going to give you differentiation, separation. I believe that gives you an advantage in the tournaments this weekend, in the big GPP. The big sites, I would imagine, here, as I don't know, I guess, Phil coined it, the box store DFS, the Walmart DFS. You know, you go to the DFS site and they provide you everything. So it's like, all right, you get everything, but is it the best of everything? Probably not. Still, whatever it is, you know. You got a sport, you know, they're covering baseball, basketball every night. They're covering horse racing. They're covering MMA. Whereas Phil, like, this is his thing. It's NASCAR. So you get more comparative advantage. Anyway, the box stores are probably going to try to sell you on place differential from drivers who are fast in practice or who are good names. Whereas I am going to tell you that I think you're chasing place differential from the randos. And I know you don't like doing that. And you want to have some sort of predictive concrete. Well, this is your predictive. This is your concrete data. This is the trend. I laid out how the race plays out. You're not going to have an exact number going into Sunday, an exact data point, but you have contextual evidence from going through this podcast and looking at the previous races to defend and provide evidence for why you're going to pick someone who really doesn't deserve the top 15 finish that they're going to get. Where everyone else is going to try to probably chase place differential that is deserved. They're going to try to chase place differential that is earned via being a good team, a good car, running well in practice. And that's their evidence, that's their data, and it might not work. And they're going to look at you and say, you just got lucky. And you're going to say, I didn't get lucky. What I did was I understood the trends and the patterns, and I knew that Gateway comes down to plenty of cautions and pit sequencing. And I knew I had to be a little bit different. And I knew that I had to, in my projection system, take practice data and weigh that a little less and take a little bit more chance and play a little bit more DFS theory and take drivers that may not be the best, but could get on the right side of pit sequencing. Hopefully that was helpful. Big week, Gateway Trucks. Got some Portland. Get you playing podcasts on the way. Excited to be here. As always, truly blessed, and I really mean that to have you guys around. I hope you had a fun, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I know rain kind of got in the way, but hey, it's on to the next week. And hopefully this podcast has empowered you with some information that's going to help you approach the weekend better. I love you guys. Trip Life Fantastic.